This week on Security Weekly, we interview Dennis Fisher, editor-in-chief for On the Wire. In security news for this week, we're going to talk about more SSL fail, Cisco router vulnerabilities, and everyone's favorite subject, patch management. All that and more, so stay tuned. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Security Weekly is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security, the leaders in penetration testing and active defense. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to request a quote today. The SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer security training, certification, and research. Visit sans.org to explore the full curriculum and latest training offerings. Onapsis, the leading provider of solutions to protect ERP systems from cyber attacks. Customers can secure their SAP and Oracle business-critical platforms from espionage, sabotage, and financial fraud risks. Visit them on the web at onapsis.com. Pony Express. Check out their line of penetration testing devices, including the Pwn Pad, the Pwn Phone, and the Pwn Pro. For enterprises, there's Pwn Pulse, providing continuous visibility into wired, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth spectrums across all physical locations, including remote sites and branch offices. For all those hard-to-reach places, there's Pony Express. Visit them on the web at ponyexpress.com.
And here's your host. He's a man that really looks good in that pink shirt.
Hey, thanks.
Paul Asadorian.
Yay! This is episode 455 of Security Weekly. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian. Very excited to be here. As always, we have a fantastic show lined up for you. We're going to interview Dennis Fisher. We're going to talk about all kinds of security news. In fact, I think it's just Larry and I talking about security news. Now, Dennis is more than one. Oh, no! Look who it is on the lines via Skype. It is none other than the sexy, old and wrinkly but good Mr. Jack Daniel. Or not. But that was like such a build-up. Is Jack frozen? Is he? Is it the mum? Is he mummified?
He's not moving.
Did we lose Jack?
I know he's old.
Come back.
Oh, he's moving.
He's moving.
Okay, he's alive. He's typing.
He's typing. Okay. Well, we'll get the audio issues. I said that with a really Boston accent. We'll get the audio issues sorted out. That's almost like a New York accent.
When it finally gets back here, it'll be wicked pissa.
It will be. Oh, boy. Quick announcement. InfoSec World, April 4th through the 6th. You can visit infosecworld.misty.com. That's MISTI.com.
Huh?
MIS Training Institute.
Oh,
Misty.
gotcha.
Not like the stripper name Misty.
I was going to say. Cause
That's what you think of, though, isn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
I mean,
it looks like the new model in our new Hack Naked logo, which we're not going to print up any T-shirts. Just Mark did that. I thought it came. Oh, it's gone now, but it was awesome when it was up there. So anyway, check out InfoSec World. Make sure you do that. I think that's it for announcements. Last week we had my big announcement. You can visit offensivecountermeasures.com. Sign up for our beta program. Again, I can't promise that everyone will be in the beta program. I can't promise it's a 100% free beta program, but it's more like a trial kind of thing. But you should sign up for it. We're looking to work with members of the community. John Strand and some of the other people who are working with us on Offensive Countermeasure will be at SANS Orlando. So if you're there, make sure you check us out. And can I announce that we'll be at Black? Sure, why not? We'll be at Black Hat in the Innovation Theater, which I think we already signed up. I did. We filled out paperwork and stuff. So we'll be at Black Hat. So make sure you check us out at Black Hat. I want to introduce even our special guest for this evening, Dennis Fisher, who is no longer at the title that is in the show notes. He is, in fact, the editor-in-chief of On the Wire. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Paul. It's great to be here. I love the podcast, man. You guys do a great job.
Thank you so much. We love all of your security journalism, so make sure you keep that up. How did you get started doing journalism in technology and security?
It was kind of dumb luck. I got to what was then PC Week in 2000. I moved up to Boston from the DC area, and this will tell you how old I am. When I got to PC Week, they gave me the beat covering groupware, which was like Microsoft Exchange, Novell GroupWise, and some other sad thing that I can't even remember.
Oh yeah, there was something else in there.
Lotus Notes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Wow. So they gave you two dying technologies and one really boring technology.
Correct. Which tells you exactly what they thought of me at the time.
And you weren't of legal drinking age. I mean, looking at you, couldn't have been. Were you even 21 at the time?
I was barely.
Barely. Okay.
So that was like, if you remember, kind of the middle of 2000 was when like the I Love You virus came out and all those kind of VB scripts, like email viruses came out. So our security reporter at the time, Scott Baronato, and I were writing a lot of stories together. And then Scott left at the end of the year to go to CIO, and nobody wanted the security beat. Like none of the senior reporters wanted it. They were like, "That's stupid. I want to go cover servers." I was like, "Okay, I'll take it." And it just kind of went from there. And then that was early 2001. And security just kind of blew up.
It blew up right after that. You were in the right place at the right time. Sorry,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been so lucky to stay covering it for 15 years. It's been so much fun, as you know. Like there's no day is the same. There's no 2 days back to back that are the same day. Everything changes every day.
There's always a new Adobe Flash vulnerability, always a new SSL vulnerability.
He said the days were different.
Yeah, some days,
yeah, some days are the same.
Some trends never change.
Right. You could just pick it by the calendar. Oh, it's Thursday. There's a Flash bug.
Yes. So what are some of the more interesting trends in security news that you've kind of noticed over the years?
Oh man, it's changed so much in that amount of time. I mean, back then there was a lot of kind of ambulance chasing. Like nobody knew exactly what security was. Like the security community was really, really small. It's not huge now, but back then it was tiny, tiny, tiny. And the threats were things like, those email viruses, DDoS attacks, all of that kind of stuff. There was none of the, nation state level stuff that we're talking about now, or, taking down the power grid or any of that kind of stuff. That was a little bit after like the Loft guys had got in front of Congress and said, we can wreck your internet before we get to the hotel. But, in the 15 years since then, everything is just kind of, it's kind of spread out and gone in so many different directions. It's gone from just, either network security and endpoint security to, mobile and cars and refrigerators and everything else these days. And right now it seems like I just got back from RSA like everybody else, and everybody wanted to talk about threat intelligence or
sorry, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Norse was there. They could have talked a whole bunch about. Never mind.
Hey, Jack, are you there?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Welcome, Jack Daniel, to the show.
What's up, Jack?
Yes, hey.
So Jack was a huge inspiration for us, Dennis, in getting you on the show. So I'm glad that you're able to make it, and Jack was a great recommendation. Because here we are, throwing up our mouths about threat intelligence.
Yes,
so,
threat intelligence. Yeah, most, as I said last year, most threat intelligence is a threat to our intelligence. So that's it. But did you, since I joined a little bit late, did you know where Dennis worked before he got into technology? Did he tell you what deep, dark secret both Dennis and I share?
Oh, so you started to grow a beard, but it didn't work out? Is that... It was actually, lost in a fire like Jack's, but Jack regrew his and you decided not to?
I'll have a full beard by the end of this podcast. So I, like Jack, used to work in the auto industry, sort of. I covered the auto industry before I started writing about technology, and like, if you think people in the tech industry are full of garbage, like the auto industry is so many levels beyond that. It's incalculable. It's just unbelievable. Jack has the inside stories, but like just the stuff that I saw in like 3 years writing about Detroit was just unreal. Unreal. And this is when they were still actually making money. Like,
right.
I can't even imagine what it was like in the 7 or 8 years ago when they were all completely failing.
So Dennis, you mentioned threat intelligence. Was that a theme of RSA? And just kind of a follow-up statement. I'm a proponent of threat intelligence in certain situations. I'm not totally downing threat intelligence, but like, what were some of the things that you saw specifically with threat intelligence? Because it's kind of like been a little bit of a hot topic lately.
Yeah, everywhere you went, not just, I only spent probably 10 minutes on the show floor, just walked around to see what people were talking about and what the booth themes were. It was all over the place on the show floor. So many talks at RSA were about threat intelligence or threat hunting, which seemed to be the new little offshoot catchphrase from that, which I think is something that good internal teams have been doing for a long time.
They have, and awesome new startups that are implementing that technology.
Yeah,
like offensive countermeasures.
Right.
Sorry.
No. Get those plugs.
That's right.
Dude, it's your show.
Right?
My show, my company. I guess I can plug it all I want, right? Until people start sending me hate mail.
Pegging? What?
No, not that. Okay. So sorry, Dennis, you were saying.
All right. Yeah, but even, the conversations in like the hallways and the bars and everything, so much.
Right?
I'll wait.
Damn, that's smooth.
Damn, that's smooth. Very nice, Jack. Paul's over here bargling.
No, I'm just drowning.
He's just drowning? Drowning in his own success. That success is what the kids are calling it nowadays, Paul. No, I'm good.
It's good. It's good. I'm just drowning in my own water. So you were saying...
Hey, 10 years. This is the first time this has ever happened.
Second.
Really?
Yeah, no, I drowned in my drink.
Wow.
Now it's like I have a frog in my throat. I can't even talk.
And dude, I know I'm really good looking and all, but you don't have to cry about it.
No, can you just take over the interview for like 3 minutes while I recover?
We're here laughing at you.
Oh, I was enjoying it.
I expect nothing less.
Of course. So threat intelligence. Wait, that's how Paul got started in this in the first place.
This is what caused all of the trouble.
So Dennis,
go ahead, Jack.
So Dennis, you were one of the forces behind Threat Post, putting together that news aggregator and a great news site that really brought a bunch of interesting information together, and and now you have moved on, and it looks like you're trying to recreate that early days vibe from Threat Post. So what are you up to these days?
Yeah, it's kind of along the same lines, kind of the same model as Threat Post, onthewire.io. It's it's a news site. I'm the main writer there. We're going to have some contributors and things like that, but I'm writing about security still, but in a slightly different way. Not so much about just bugs and vulnerabilities and attacks, but more about kind of sort of like the it's owned by Pindrop, which is we do phone fraud protection and authentication and things along those lines. So I'm focusing a lot on that, as well as kind of device security, a little bit of IoT security, social engineering type stuff. So some things that I've been covering for a long time, and also some other things that I hadn't really been writing about so much. So it's been a lot of fun trying to sort of build something new, as well as writing about new things, and not just kind of the bug of the day kind of stories, which get highly repetitive, as you guys know.
You're saying that you didn't miss having to write about Patch Tuesday this week?
Oh man,
Oh God!
I'll tell you,
Did
it
you
breaks
write
my heart
how
seeing
many
all
how
the
many Patch
best
Tuesdays did you write, Dennis? Write up about?
I would say, I mean, from the very first one until about 8 months ago. So,
Oh
you
my
know,
God!
almost every one. I mean,
How did you not want to kill yourself?
who said I did?
Who said he didn't?
That's
Yeah.
true. I did it for about a year.
Which was exactly 1 year too long.
Yes.
Yeah, because you know, once you read through those bulletins, you realize, 99% of the stuff in there is just completely useless.
Mm-hmm.
It's slightly better than Apple's bulletins, but not 100. Not a lot. You just kind of
And getting worse lately too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. There's no question. And I mean, to me, that's the Microsoft part of that is it seems like they're rolling back a lot of the progress that they made during the beginning, the first, 6 or 8 years of the MSRC and the trustworthy computing era. They seem to be, we know they've let go a lot of those people, a lot of the good people, and they just kind of seem to be walking back some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the core OSs are a lot more secure than they used to be,
For sure.
but the people and processes that got them there are, as you said, no longer there, which kind of makes me wonder.
It makes me wonder a lot. I mean, Microsoft got so cranky last year when we wrote stories about them breaking up the TWC unit, and they, wanted to play semantics about like, oh no, we didn't actually get rid of it. We just moved people to a whole bunch of other things, but we still have.
What was it? They integrated them into the regular workflow instead of being separate, and then none of those people work there anymore.
Right, and then they integrated the other people into other companies.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Integrated them out of Microsoft.
Right, outintegrated.
Outintegrated, right.
So, Dennis, in covering security for so long, what are some of the things that we've overcome over the years?
Oh man, I feel like we've gotten a really good hold on like we were talking about earlier, Paul, like the kind of dumb endpoint security problems like opening garbage in email that will then, cause giant network problems. I mean, people still open stupid attachments and click on stupid links, but they might only affect that endpoint. They don't end up in giant internet crushing worms anymore. And I also feel like we've gotten a decent hold on like user education. I know that's, it's a continuous problem, and there's a lot of debate in the industry about whether user education actually does any good or whether it's kind of a waste of time. I tend to fall on the side of it does more good than harm. I don't see, how making people aware of what the security threats are and, the everyday problems they're gonna face with phishing emails and, people trying to social engineer them or, tailgate them through the door at their office. I don't see the harm in that. Only good can come from that. I know it can cost a lot of money and things like that, but I think we've gotten a much better handle on that. Whereas, even 8 or 10 years ago, the large portion of people in any given enterprise didn't know what the hell you were talking about if you said information security. They had no idea what you were talking about.
Even the concept of having a security team was foreign when you started, right, in 2000, 2001.
For sure.
Yeah.
100%. Like, unless it was the largest enterprise or a financial services company,
or a lot. I used to work for a lottery company.
Yeah, I would hope they had that. Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
But, even some of the technology companies that I was covering in the very early days that were decent sized tech companies, here in the Boston area, didn't have dedicated security teams. Or if they did, they were, one
person.
2 guys. Yeah, exactly. Most of them were like network admins that like spent, maybe 8% of their time doing security.
Right.
And that was patching or, resetting passwords for people. It wasn't like proactive defense. It was just kind of like triage and cleaning up messes.
It was more incident response.
Tons, so much. And nobody thought about the real threat to corporate assets that, you know, somebody penetrating an endpoint and then being able to move to, you know, a different endpoint and escalating privileges and all that. Nobody really thought about that on a big scale. You know, to me, like at least in the coverage and the way that people were talking about it, the turning point was the Google Aurora attack. When Google came out and started talking about that, which I want to say that was '08. When
I'll buy that. I think it was '08 too.
I think it was around there. That was the first time that we heard anybody, let alone, you know, a large technology company like Google, talk about being compromised by. I don't think they said it at the time.
Did they say APT at the time?
They didn't say APT.
Or did we say, they said Aurora and we said APT?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. They said Aurora, and I don't remember where that name came from. It was whoever their incident response company was, I think. But they and now we've learned more details about that. Like it seems like somebody was going after their, you know, the server that held their warrant information and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that was kind of the turning point where people started looking at this like, oh, it's not just, you know, maybe some annoyance. They're going after like vital information, and not just to maybe sell on the underground, to use in other attacks and to use in, you know, intelligence gathering operations. That was the big kind of flag in the ground for me.
How has the antivirus industry changed over time? And it's interesting. We're going to cover a story about AV, and even though they poke some holes in it, and there's a lot of great statistics that really talk about how feeble AV is, but people still use it, and a lot of really smart people still recommend that people still use it.
They do, and you know. I worked at Kaspersky for, you know, the Threat Post was owned by Kaspersky. I worked there for almost 7 years.
So did you want to like trash AV when you worked at Kaspersky and like talk about all the flaws it had?
I didn't. I mean, I definitely wrote those stories when I was at eWeek and at Tech Target. You know, I think as far back as like 2005 or 6, saying, you know, AV is dead, that kind of thing. And I think at that point it was because it was all sort of just based on the signature based approach. Whereas, you know, you're just looking for known threats. But the stuff that's, you know, the high level stuff now that's really advanced is so far beyond that. You know, they're looking, they've got the heuristics and they've got all kinds of reactive technology that doesn't just look for, you know, known threats coming in through email or on the web or whatever. There's all kinds of different layers to it. It's certainly evolved a ton in what it's. How old is AV? 20 years, 25 years? I guess we should ask John McAfee.
We did. It was 80, late 80s, early 90s.
Jack remembers.
I can jump out to the Shoulders wiki because I've got that listed somewhere. I forget where, but there's
when we interviewed John McAfee, he said when he started. Yeah,
when he started. But he didn't write the first one. He wrote the first commercial one. I'm trying to remember. It's. I'm not going to dig to the Shoulders wiki, but we've got it there. You know, one of the things, Dennis, with having been at Kaspersky, your opinion. One of the things I tell people about antivirus or endpoint protection or whatever we're supposed to call it now is that. It has, you know, some rudiment. It has value, but a lot of people pay too much for it and don't use it well. And, you know, one of the things that working with Verizon, for example, that they've pointed out, the DBIR team has pointed out, is that a lot of people point out that when a new bad thing hits, you know, polymorphic stuff changes so often it's hard to spot immediately. So it's sometimes 3 or 4 days before antivirus or endpoint protection catches up with it, and people pay no attention at that time other than complain. And one of the things that some of the Verizon folks have seen is that if you're actually monitoring what gets hit, if it takes 6 or 7 days to exfiltrate data and you find it in 4 days and you're paying attention, you know, you come out ahead. And the other point is, you know, I think a lot of people pay way too much for antivirus. You know, if you're a small business, you're screwed, but if you're a major enterprise, you're beating antivirus vendors down to low single-digit dollars per unit per seat. So, I don't know. What do you see, or what did you see before leaving Kaspersky?
Yeah, I think I think that's right, Jack. A lot of people kind of uh, bang on these tools and say like, they're of limited use or that sort of thing. But I think you're right. It's all in how you use them. If you're paying attention to the results you get and using them correctly for, specific purposes, they all have value. But I also think you're correct about the price. If you're a small, uh, little accounting office or law firm where you have 8 or 10 people and you're paying God knows what per seat, it's expensive. But then on the other hand, if it stops one of those phishing emails that would have ended up with your accounts payable person transferring funds to Bangladesh, then you probably got your money's worth.
Right.
But it's hard to kind of suss that out ahead of time.
Right.
It's all kind of you're all kind of doing it on the fly or historical, saying, okay, well, did it stop 10 threats? We don't know. Maybe it did. We don't know.
Right.
Or
That's part of the whole security thing, right? Defensive security, when it works really well, it works really well, and there's not much to talk about.
Right.
Right.
Was that a good investment? Nothing happened. It's like, well, you want to spend less, stuff will happen.
That's the idea. Yeah. I mean, it's like the CIA, right? They can't talk about their successes. You only hear about their failures.
Yep. I had the same thing with the whole entire security program at a previous job that, in fact, they had spent a decent amount of money because they had a problem. We solved a whole bunch of problems and then some and did industry best practices and built a world-class security program, and nothing happened.
Right.
And then they said, well, why are we going to give you any money to replace this stuff? It's not doing anything. I'm like, no. It's doing so much that nothing has happened.
Right.
Prove it. I'm like, at the time, metrics at the time
Metrics
for
are
stuff
hard.
like that,
Yeah.
they just didn't exist.
So then they start pulling back the security because then you gain some convenience.
Yep. And then
bad things happen.
They just didn't necessarily pull back. They just didn't replace the stuff that we already had that was end of life.
Right.
And made us do Band-Aids.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it was time for me to go. And sure enough, the next guy that came in after me, 6 months after he was there, who had said all the same things that I had been saying.
Mm-hmm. Got it all. Yeah. Right.
It was the best thing that I could have done for that organization. Was to
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. AV is interesting. It's so easily bypassed. John and company, when we do webcasts on bypassing antivirus, we did the Sacred Cow cache tipping. Is that what he calls it? Webcast series. He's like, yeah, we start that at like 5:00, like the day before, and we bypass 80 or 90% of the AV systems. But John has the most experience out of anyone that I know bypassing AV, and even he will say, if you properly configure these tools, it's much, much harder. And a lot of the times when he's worked with a particular vendor who's, taken objection to him giving these webcasts or presenting on this subject, they'll say, well, if you configure it this way, that your attack won't work. And he's like, wow, it does. Like, how come no one's configuring it that way?
Right.
What's the deal with that? Why is the deal with people not using the security tools that they're given in a correct manner?
I think you guys just hit on it a few seconds ago because it's inconvenient. Security is a pain in the ass. Like nobody, door locks, car locks, all that kind of stuff is a pain in the neck. Like if you walk out to take out the trash and the door shuts behind you and you forget your key, you're screwed. It's the same kind of thing. People just want to be able to use their machines for the things they want to use them for, and they don't want to have to think about like.
And let's face it, primarily that's to get porn. I mean,
I have no comment on that. None.
Very, very PC of you, Dennis. Very nice.
I thought it was like online banking and Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely it, which you can use
Just
your banking to
pay
buy
for
porn on
porn.
Amazon. But this is the internet. Who buys porn anymore?
That's true. The porn industry's hurt. Sorry. We just totally segueing, Dennis. Sorry. Continue.
That's all right. Feel free to sidetrack. Yeah. I mean, it's just the whole thing of, security inconveniences people, and they're, at some point will just disable the AV or click through every warning. Even like the browser certificate warnings, which, are the most serious warnings you can get on a website, but most people will look at that and be like,
yeah.
Dennis, if we did one of those things like they do in the late night talk shows where they go on the street and they ask people questions. If you asked random people that question, hey, what do you do when you see a browser certificate warning in your web browser? I wonder what people would say.
And it says,
what's that?
Would you like to proceed or
Yes,
take
I
me
would.
back?
They'd be like, what are you talking? Most people are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And at least in Chrome, they've made it so obvious. It's a giant red screen with a huge X on it saying, don't do this.
People just still do it.
Yeah, they look for the little mouse type at the bottom that says, go anyway.
Yeah, because you know what? If I don't go, I can't get to Facebook.
Correct.
But why can't those same people use two-factor authentication? Come on, you can figure out how to get around the browser certificate warning, but you can't use two-factor authentication.
Hey, they cannot enter a 5-digit code that's on their phone.
Right, exactly.
They can't figure that out, or a token.
Exactly.
No, it's really complicated, and I know that the industry has been working hard over the last few years to try and make it more usable. But just the fact that there's a whole field called usable security tells us that we still have a long way to go. We don't have a field called usable cars or
right.
usable shoes. Like, it's just
usable belts.
Dennis, what's the most interesting security trend or technology, or like in the security news? Like, what's the most interesting thing you've covered in some time?
I mean, the most interesting story to me personally right now is this FBI Apple thing. Only because there's a whole bunch of aspects that interest me, not just kind of like the power struggle between two very powerful institutions. And, we could probably flip a coin and decide who's more powerful between Apple and the FBI.
I think if you put Apple and Google together, they might outweigh.
They might. Yeah, they might. They certainly have larger budgets.
Yep.
But there's so many different aspects to me of that story that are interesting. There's the backdoor part of it, which is interesting. There's the whole idea that the FBI, to me at least, I don't think they're all that concerned about this one specific phone. I mean, the person that used that phone is dead. There don't seem to be any obvious co-conspirators that they're interested in. This all seems to be in the service of setting a precedent.
But don't forget the latent cyber pathogens.
I forgot about that part. I apologize, because they are latent. So
right.
And they're pathogens.
Right.
You're right.
And it's cyber.
Dormant, whatever. Yeah. God.
The dormant
Right.
cyber pathogens.
Which means they're sleeping. I don't know how they get awoken, but that to me is probably going to be one of those things that just, not that specific story, but versions of that over the next few years are going to keep repeating and are going to be really, really important in terms of how all of this plays out with Apple and Google and other people resisting government pressure to either compromise their OS or, sell a compromised version of their devices. As there's bills in California and New York that are trying to get that done. There's so many different legal and technical aspects to it. And, if I was one of the engineers at Apple that was looking at this, who had worked, years on iOS security, and somebody, there's a possibility that somebody might walk in a week and say, hey, all that stuff that you've done over the last few years? Yeah, we need you to undo that. I mean, how angry would you be if somebody was like, all that great work you've done, just throw all that shit in the trash because the government wants access to this guy's, iMessages? Be furious. And, there's a lot of pieces of that I think are going to echo down the years for a while to come.
Dennis, what are, you were just at RSA. I know you said you didn't spend a whole ton of time on the show floor, but what are some of the hot or, I guess, viable security companies, technologies, or solutions that are on the market today? Because there's so many, right? And I feel like we're at a crossroads now, or a point in time now where it's really important for us to understand what all of these technologies are and where they fit. And that's somewhat self-serving because we're trying to spin up a new show to address this. But I wanted to ask you what you thought about it today. Like, if you had to pick some solutions or vendors, who would they be?
That word "viable" that you threw in there, kind of as an afterthought, is interesting. That's a loaded word.
Well, I mean, we can all just play like vendor roulette, right? And you can find positives of things to say about a lot of the vendors on the market today. But, I can find positive things to say in a lot of things. It doesn't mean necessarily good or a viable solution, if you will.
No. To me, the most useful / viable technologies are going to be the ones that are sitting in that kind of nexus between like encryption, privacy, kind of device security, right in there. Because I mean, everybody, I think probably most people, almost all the people I know, their main computing device these days is their phone. And
it's interesting. We covered an article where it said tablets were dead. And I'm like, holy crap, they're absolutely right. Like, I use my iPhone 6 Plus for like everything now.
You're 100% right. I was thinking about this last night because the tablet that I use the most is kind of dying slowly. And I was like, I got to figure out which one I'm going to get next. And then I kind of thought about it. I was like, what the hell do I need another one for? Like, there's 6 tablets in my house right now. And I almost never use any of them. My kids each have an iPad mini. They use those all the time. But mostly what I use a tablet for is like as a Netflix device. Like it's, it's on a stand in my kitchen so I can watch it as I cook dinner or whatever. So I do feel like the phone encryption device security thing is going to be a huge deal. And these privacy apps that allow people to send, end-to-end encrypted messages and end-to-end encrypted phone calls, that kind of thing, I think is going to be a huge deal because as more and more people become aware of like the problem of mass surveillance and putting all of this information about themselves out there, I have plenty of friends that are not in the technology world whatsoever that use things like Signal or Wicker or other privacy enhanced apps like that. And 18 months or 2 years ago, those people would have had no idea what an encrypted chat app was. No idea. And I really think that's a big portion of where the brain power in the security industry is going. I know a lot of the smartest security researchers and engineers I know are working on things like that. So I'm interested to see where that all takes us, in another 18 months to 2 years.
Are you worried that it also seems that in that same space, not only are some of the smartest, best and brightest working on it, some of the dumbest and charlatans are working on it based on some of what we've seen in alleged security apps in mobile.
Pardon me.
Any thoughts on that?
Tell us how you really feel, Jack.
Well, EFF just did that a list, and I'm not going to say much about the list, but they made an attempt at something, but I think it was far from comprehensive. And a lot of apps came out really bad. A lot of them have a really bad track record. And, how, as these things get out there, how are, the average consumer, how are even we supposed to know which ones are actually secure? And let's back that down to the average consumer, where, it's the FBI, instead of fighting Apple, could stand up a startup and build build a secure messaging platform and put some air quotes on secure, put some good backdoors in it, and get it in the Apple store and get it in the Android store, and then they just own everything, and people would give them $3.99 to use it.
Yes.
Not to play conspiracy theorist or anything, but
no. I would not expect that from you, Jack. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, because we've seen, just in the last probably, go back to whenever the Snowden revelation started. Right away we started seeing a whole bunch of these kind of like, hey, here's my secure, text app, here's my secure phone app, whatever. It's my secure version of Snapchat or whatever stupid social media app. And a lot of them, thankfully, have been proven out to be just straight garbage by people in the security industry. But yes, I am super worried about those, like people looking at those kind of things and thinking, oh, well, it says secure, so it's secure. And the average person that's downloading something from the App Store or Google Play doesn't have a great mechanism for figuring out what's secure and what's not. And last week at RSA, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's in the tech industry and had been using one of these allegedly secured text apps and was telling me about it. And I was like, get that off your phone right now. Go download Signal. And he's like, well, how do you know that's secure? I said, because I know the people that wrote it. And I know, a bunch of cryptographers that have looked at it. It's, as good as it gets. So, that's the best we can do. But yeah, Jack, I'm super worried about that because there's I feel like there's that, there's periodic gold rushes in the security industry, like every other industry. And I feel like there's a whole bunch of, Bitcoins and Chuck E. Cheese tokens being thrown at that area right now. So people are going to pick those up whether they know what they're doing or not.
I could use some Chuck E. Cheese tokens, actually. My boys love going to Chuck E. Cheese.
That pizza is delicious.
Oh, God. How do you screw up pizza? Like, come on.
They've figured it out.
It's like bread, sauce, and cheese. If you go get the cheapest bread, sauce, and cheese, you can actually screw up pizza, which is amazing. It's like cardboard with regular sauce with not just red crushed tomato sauce.
No.
At least they keep the ball pits clean.
What's that?
At least they keep the ball pits clean.
Yeah.
God.
That's urine.
That's a disease pit right there.
Urine is a cleanser, right?
Exactly.
It's sterile to me. Am I?
What was I going to say? Oh, with IoT security, it's the hot topic right now, right?
It is.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on IoT security? What's going to happen?
Or lack thereof.
Are we just going to keep going down the same path? Are there going to be solutions that emerge? Are things going to get better before they get worse, like Bruce Schneier says? Or what do you think is going to happen with IoT in respect to security?
I feel like right now it's kind of like, I don't know, 1996 in that area. There are definitely some smart people looking at that problem. And thankfully, some of the good security researchers started focusing on that a couple years ago. Guys like Billy Rios and other folks and the guys at IOActive who started looking at kind of some of these smart/dumb devices that have computers in them for no reason and have no security whatsoever, and all these insecure protocols and open ports and that kind of thing. And they've been kind of gradually, poking the manufacturers and the vendors and saying, hey, this is terrible. You need to fix this and that kind of thing. But I think the problem is that so many of these vendors are not, they're not technology vendors. They're dishwasher vendors or car vendors or, toaster or thermostat or whatever. And they're not used to dealing with security researchers. They're not used to hiring, penetration testers or software security folks. So they don't necessarily know what they don't know yet. And they're just all rushing to get all these, internet-enabled devices out there. and they'll figure out the rest later.
Yep.
And, we've seen that with obviously some of these connected cars that, like the G-Pack that Charlie and Chris Valasek did last year, and some of the medical device hacks that Billy has done, those kind of things. And, they get some attention at the time, but I'm worried that the vendors have gotten to the point where they've figured out, like, if we can just kind of ride this little bump of bad publicity out and kind of go with the flow for a little while, we can still keep making these devices without spending a whole bunch of money on security. And we don't want to raise our costs because people don't want to pay more. I'm worried about that part of it, but I do think that some of the manufacturers are starting to pay attention to this stuff. Definitely some of the car manufacturers have gotten the message, but their product development life cycles are 5 to 10 years long. Appliance manufacturers less, but if you've got blue screens of death showing up on your refrigerator, or your TV is recording every conversation in your living room, that's a big problem. And those are not things that the general consumer is thinking about, like most security problems. So it's up to the security community to raise that awareness. We have seen Congress pay some attention to this lately.
Mhm.
In the last 6 or 8 months, there's been plenty of hearings on it, but Congress holds hearings just to kind of fill up their calendars in a lot of ways. So
just to hear them self-talk.
Yeah, they love that. So I'm cautiously optimistic, I would say, Paul, in
Mhm.
terms of where things could be going. They're not great right now, but I do feel like there's enough people writing and yelling and talking about it to kind of get things moving in the right direction fairly soon.
Yeah, I agree, and I see it as, I think we've built a lot of awareness in our own community.
Yeah.
I even think that there are fairly well-defined guidelines and standards that exist today to solve a lot of these problems in IoT and embedded systems. But many of the manufacturers have really, some of them have just started to listen, and for the most part, the rest of them really just aren't on board with the whole security thing. And I think it's going to take some time. I think there's going to be some incidents. I think the government may I don't want to say regulation, but
it's interesting the way
someone's going to have to force their hand.
It's interesting the way you sort of phrase that, Paul, and that I'm seeing that some of them don't necessarily want to get on board, and it's not necessarily that they don't necessarily want to get on board, that they're just ignorant to the whole problem in general. And which back to when we were talking about printers as being embedded devices, being IoT, that there were all of these issues. I mean, it's the same thing over and over again. And I see that as folks not listening to things that have come in the past. And just exactly, that's not their business. Their business is to churn and burn on product to get them to market first.
Right. Print stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of that problem is a lot of them don't want to worry about security from the ground up because it just adds time and cost to the product development life cycle. And they also don't necessarily want to patch those systems once they're out in the field, because what they really want is to sell you another device. Like it's the Android handset thing. Like they're not great about pushing out updates to that thing unless you're on a Google Nexus device, because the carriers just want you to upgrade your phone. Like they're not all that worried about patching your OS. They're worried about you buying a new Galaxy S47, in 3 months.
That's where I think regulation might be helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Could. Yeah.
Right. And I'm not generally one that is advocating for that stuff, but
Me either.
Yeah, in some cases it's got to happen. And I feel like we've learned this lesson so many times over the years with, network security, endpoint security, mobile security, wireless LAN security. Like, why? Why are we doing this all over again? Why can't we, apply the lessons from even just a couple years ago. They don't have to be from 20 years ago. Just apply the lessons from the people that built, Bluetooth enabled devices or whatever. Apply those lessons to what you're doing now. But I don't know. It doesn't seem to be getting through it for the most part right now.
Has Bluetooth security come around?
No, it went the wrong direction.
No.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Because they went Bluetooth 2.1 was sort of the standard classic type area. Then Bluetooth 3 was Bluetooth alternate MAC and physical layer, Bluetooth AMP, which basically says, Bluetooth is evolving. You need to do higher speed data transfers than 2.1 meg effective data rate. Great. We have a Bluetooth connection. Let's use our Wi-Fi chips to do Wi-Fi. Which is okay because it was WPA2 pre-shared key, but still very low adoption. But the big one now is Bluetooth Low Energy.
I was going to say low energy is a train wreck, right?
Low energy is a freaking train wreck. That's what I was playing with here earlier. Is that I have 2 Bluetooth Low Energy dongles.
There was something I'd heard there was low energy.
I have a low energy dongle. Oh, Bluetooth. Never mind.
Wow.
Jack, I got some email that said you can get some
way
things
too much information
to improve that from Canada on the cheap.
Oh boy.
But Bluetooth Low Energy is a freaking train wreck.
I'll have to look up and see what it was. It was using low energy. There's a few things that have come across.
So I was doing scans in my office, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. So my Pebble, before I lost it, was doing low energy. Mm-hmm. I have a set of Christmas lights in my office that do low energy. I have a light bulb in my office that does low energy. Mm-hmm. And the Christmas lights and the light bulb require no pin to access.
Mm-hmm.
And why is the light bulb Bluetooth enabled?
So you can change
it from your phone,
color.
dude. Come on,
change
the color.
It's an LED. You can change
how did
color.
we live before I could turn my lights on and off with my smartphone? I don't understand how I lived.
Yeah,
were the days when I had to get up and adjust the thermostat in my house? What was that all?
That's the other one that I haven't checked. Is that my electric smoker out on the deck is Bluetooth Low Energy?
What?
Yeah.
So when it can send you an alert when it's...
I can change the temperature. It's sitting on my ass on the sofa.
We just
set a timer.
I don't know. For decades, I've used a wife for home automation. It works really well.
My Anvos sous vide cooker is Bluetooth. I don't know whether it's Bluetooth or Bluetooth Low Energy. It's probably Low Energy.
This is kind of off topic, but I feel like we're enabling the laziness generation with all this technology.
Oh my God! Are you kidding me?
My son is all... He loves his iPad, but he's just... I'm like, don't you want to get under your comforter? He's like, no, I want to lay on top of it so that I don't have to make my bed in the morning. Like, dude,
that's low energy.
That's
right there, man.
So I know off topic and down that road. I saw a post because we've been doing a lot of Airbnb rentals fairly recently. And it was like how to turn the lights off in a millennial's Airbnb apartment.
Oh, God, that was hysterical.
Yeah,
I saw that too.
Yeah, they send the message to the Airbnb folks, and they're like, I don't know how to turn the light off in the bathroom. And they're like, oh, sorry. So take your iPhone or take your mobile device and go to your store, whether it be Google or whichever, download this app. When you get this app downloaded, open it up and you'll see that you can connect to this device. And then when you do that, you go and get the stool and you go in the closet. And in the closet, there's this device that looks like a smoke detector. Press the button, and then it will successfully pair. And then you can use the app to turn the light off in the bathroom.
It's awesome.
Tremendous.
It's called a fucking switch.
It was perfected about 130 years ago.
Yeah.
At that point, I think it's called a rock.
Yeah.
But
we'll get it turned off. On is your problem, buddy.
But once you can do it from your phone, when your wife goes in the bathroom, you can turn the lights off on her.
See? Yeah.
Huh?
Or you can have your wife call 5 minutes before the podcast and say, I don't know, honey, which USB cable it is that you need to plug back in. I mean...
Oh, if Smart Things goes down in my house, dude, and it usually does right about 5-10 minutes before the podcast, it's chaos. No one can watch TV. No one can turn any of the lights on or off. They're stuck in whatever state they were in.
So I should probably stop that script, huh?
Oh, my God. Dude, it's hilarious. If we lose power, some of my lights... default to on, and my light bulbs in the bedroom are smart light bulbs, so if they default to on, it's daytime in the bedroom.
2 o'clock in the morning when the power finally comes back on. Well, you know the power's back on.
That's right.
Yeah, I haven't been on a trip in the last 2 years where I haven't gotten a phone call from my wife that was like, how do I get to Netflix again? Or I don't know. The power went off. I don't know what to do. I'm like, oh God. Like,
There's
talk
like
to the kids. They'll figure it out.
It's why you
That's
got to
what I say.
automate that shit so
Yeah.
it comes
Yeah, I
back on
guess.
right.
Yeah.
Like, go ask
Yeah.
Braden. Like
That's-
he's almost 8. He knows how to run everything better than I do.
That's like step
Right.
that's like step 2 for me. Is like, oh, install this new thing. 2, make sure it starts up and survives a reboot.
Right.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, especially living in New England because the power's going to go out every
Yes.
9 minutes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the kids come in handy for that, though. Even my neighbor was like, "Hey, I locked my keys in my shed." I'm like, "I'll be over with Braden." I'm like, "He'll figure it out."
Kicks the door.
And he did. He kicked the door.
That's my remote automation. It's like,
That's
kids,
right.
go do this. Yeah,
Exactly. Yes, home automation is children are good for that too.
children. That's right.
So, Dennis, tell us a little bit about Pindrop.
Sure.
This
Yeah,
is the part I'm really excited
Yeah,
to hear
Larry
about.
was really excited about this, as was I.
Yeah, it's a really cool company. It's just a few years old. It's based in Atlanta, and the main business is right now protecting against phone fraud, specifically a lot in financial services companies. A lot of banks are customers, other financial services type companies, and one of the biggest problems that those type of customers have is these account takeover activities where somebody calls into bank A and says oh, I forgot my pin or I forgot my password or whatever, can we reset that? And you might go through these knowledge based authentication questions, and with a little bit of googling you can usually figure those answers out if you know who your target is and you've done any homework, and then you have access to the account. And
Is that why banks make it so difficult if you lock out your account or forget your password?
absolutely. And I actually went through this 2 days ago with like my retirement account company.
I go through it
And
like every month, it seems like.
it's brutal.
It's
and
awful.
I mean, there's a good reason for it because of these phone-based attacks where
Mhm.
you'll have somebody calling from, say, India on like a VoIP line, but they're using voice modulation software, caller ID spoofing, and other tools to make it look like it's me calling from my
Right.
home Massachusetts. And the software that Pindrop has can tell you, okay, based on the audio signature, based on a whole bunch of other factors, it's almost 100 factors. We know this is a voice over IP line in India. It's not actually Dennis calling from
gotcha.
Massachusetts. So
Yeah, and
so
the other problem I have is that when they ask me like where I went on my honeymoon, my answers usually go fuck yourself, and they don't understand. Like that's my actual answer, not
Where you
yeah,
went. Right.
right.
My actual answer is because I don't
yes.
want people to actually know.
Right.
So
But then I forget like which
Go fuck
ridiculous
yourself answer you
phrase I've used.
and,
And I'm not
this
saying
is
it's like, but you know what I mean. You make up answers to all these questions,
absolutely.
and then
I've
you
done
forget.
that. Yeah, so many times. And like I was saying with that retirement account thing, all of their questions they asked me the other day, I could not answer because I get emailed statements from them, and the emailed statements don't have the account number on them.
Right. Oh,
They
you don't
don't-
have your account number. Forget it.
Screwed.
Right.
And so the guy was like, "Okay, tell me some of the funds that you're invested in." I was like, "I don't know that. That's in my
It's done
statement.
I don't know that
automatically.
either.
That's your job."
Why do you
That-
think I'm
that's
trying to
not-
log in? Damn it!
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Help me out. And I was totally sympathetic to him and he was sympathetic to me, but he was just like, I cannot help you. You're going to have to walk into a physical office with
Right.
like physical ID and, recover your account. I was like,
Lie
oh my
detector test,
God, like the
semen
fu-
sample, the
the
whole
whole
bit.
thing. And I was like, well, this is great. That sounds awesome. But so that's the thing they're trying to protect against is
I
these,
gotcha.
and there's, as professional as some of the traditional cybercrime groups are, these gangs are just as professional. They will spend weeks, months, years building dossiers on specific high value targets
Mm-hmm.
and work on that to get into brokerage accounts bank accounts, insurance accounts, all that kind of thing. And
Well,
they might
it's a high payoff.
Oh, absolutely. And they may not even do anything right away in those accounts. They might sit on that access for weeks or months and then start making transfers that kind of match up with the pattern of activity in those accounts in general so that they don't raise flags. They just happen to go to other banks in those countries that that person might have dealt with, all that kind of stuff. So,
but then can't two-factor authentication really help this problem if every bank or financial institution did a simple thing like text me, like you were saying before, text me a 6-digit code?
That's part of it. Sure, that definitely helps part of it, but it doesn't help the people sitting in that call center
Right.
in, Kansas trying to figure out if it's me calling from Massachusetts or if it's, some guy calling from Ukraine. It's, those are the decisions they have to make right on the spur of the moment. Like the guy I called the other day, he knew it was my phone number. I was calling from my home phone, but that could have been spoofed. I could have been a woman using, voice morphing software to impersonate me, which would be the saddest job in the world.
We were doing that. My wife and I had called the bank. I think she was on the phone and then asked me the question, and the person on the other end of the phone was like, "Oh no, someone else in the room can't be answering the question." But it was like, "What do you think? I have a battery hooked up to his nipples or something?" And I'm like, well, that could be fun, but we're just trying to get access to our bank.
That's actually kind of funny. We had that same thing happen with the kids' college fund.
Yeah.
And my wife was in the bathroom dropping a deuce and was conferenced in with my mother-in-law, who actually made the call and had to ask me the questions across the hall in my office.
Yeah.
And it was totally legit.
Yeah.
My wife is going to be embarrassed. She just said that she was in the bathroom dropping a deuce because women don't poop,
Now that we've cleared that up.
So I had a question about the way that Pindrop attempts to discover some of those voice modulation and all that type of stuff. Is it kind of along the lines of like a lie detector over the phone?
That's not a terrible analogy. There's a whole bunch of factors involved. It's based on PhD research that our CEO VJ did at Georgia Tech, and the basic concept behind it is called phone printing, and it's based on identifying not just the caller, but the device that he's calling from, or he or she is calling from. So there's a whole bunch of factors that go into it.
It sounds similar to the research that H.D. Moore did with war dialing. What was that project called?
Warvox.
Warvox, yes.
You're right. There are some similarities, yes. And, one of the things that you can kind of look at is like, gaps in the transmission, jitter, all those kind of things that will help you identify whether it's actually a landline or it's a mobile phone or VoIP or, something like that. So, there's a whole bunch of little pieces that go into it.
Well, it's just like here in the studio, even with my ears, right? I can tell the difference between all the different microphones in the studio, right? I mean, they all have a different profile to them, as do any of the devices that we
they all have a different timbre.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But if you're somebody that's sitting in, a Bank of America call center somewhere, taking 30 or 40 calls an hour, trying to figure out, should I grant this guy access to his account? Those are difficult decisions, and you don't want to be like, he sounds like a dude that's probably from Massachusetts.
Yeah, he sounds really nice.
Yeah, he said wicked and pissa in the same sentence.
That's right.
He said he parked his car in the yard, so.
Yeah. So, it's super cool stuff. It's really interesting. It's been cool for me to kind of dig into it and figure out the whole way that it's all put together. And I'm not going to profess to, be an audio engineer, but it's really interesting stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, especially, with audio engineer, and especially you talk about the low fidelity of actual phone calls and being able to pull some of that stuff. That's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So, Dennis, are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly?
I guess I am. Let's go.
3 words to describe yourself.
Short, bald, and skinny.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Lucky Charms.
Oh God.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Oh, man. The Short Life of a Short Man.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
I almost just drowned. Pass.
Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
Oh, am I going to be the resultant child, or they're just going to be like raising me?
Whatever your fantasy wants to allow for, Dennis.
Oh, come on. Jimmy Buffett and
The mom's tough, I know. We want to choose someone hot. That's like where our male brains go. But then we realize this is going to be my mother. And
Jimmy
then we
Buffett.
have this weird Freudian thing that happens, and then usually, Dennis, what happens is the guests end up choosing someone hot. So it's totally fine.
I'm gonna go off the board. Jimmy Buffett and Katie Nolan, who is somehow younger than I am. I don't know how that would work.
It's your
but she
fantasy.
seems
It's fine. This is fantasy.
Very funny and very cool. We'll go with that.
Excellent.
Very nice.
Well, Dennis, thank you very much for appearing on Security Weekly.
Thanks, boys. I appreciate it.
It was fun having you. And we can check out On the Wire at where?
OnTheWire.io.
OnTheWire.io. Dennis, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Woo.